Thank you, Dr. Tim.
You're quite welcome, and sir, have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. And today is Tuesday, July the 25th, 2023. Calling number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael a moment to dial in, and I'll just remind everybody that Thursday, day after tomorrow, is the book club, which meets the second and fourth Thursday of every month. So that's coming up. I think they're doing chapter 7 this week of the book. And then on the third and fifth Thursdays, if there is a fifth Thursday, if there's not, it'll just be on the third Thursday. They're doing A Course in Miracles, and so the next one of those is going to be on August the 17th. And they'll be doing the Name of God is My Inheritance. And I'm not sure how much longer after that it will be going, but we do know that it will go until August the 17th. And then we've also got the MindShifters and StillPoint Breathing that you can be part of. And we also have the self-study, and that is growing. There's a lot more people that are becoming involved in that and doing that and working on their own and improving what's going on for them. At this time, I will welcome Michael.
We're getting lots of awesome feedback from people who are doing the Codependence Intensive. It's just fabulous. A couple of people here calling in on the show, and the changes that are happening are just monumental. Had a gentleman call yesterday that just started doing it, and it's just opening such stuff up for him that he's just like uncovered one nugget after a nugget from his childhood, that one thing in particular has just impacted his whole life. You know, been right there, just right in front of everything for several decades, almost 7 decades. And he's just deconstructing that stuff, putting it out of his life, and coming to new states of realization of who he is, which of course is the whole bottom line of this work, is the recovery of being, the recovery of the truth of who we are. And you know, in 12-step programs they talk about recovery, but it's recovery from disease. Here's a different recovery. We're looking to uncover and recover the truth of our humanness. Uncover meaning move the hostility, the fear, the rage, the guilt, the trauma out of physiology. You know, you can have things happening that in past situations would have sent you into a fit of rage, depression, pain. And when you get rid of the rage, the depression, the pain, those things happen, and it happened. It's just, well, it happened. That happened. There's a cute AGT video we were watching a few weeks ago, and there's a young girl about 13, and she went through a bit of a challenge. It was just so cute. She's this really thick Southern accent. She comes back out to do her musical piece on America's Got Talent, and her words as she's coming back out at 13 was just, well, that just happened. It was just really cute. And so stuff happens, but few people can separate what happens from what the mind brings into play and tricks us into thinking is part of the situation that's happening, when in fact it is set into activity, is triggered by what's going on in the world, but not by any stretch of the imagination caused by what's going on in the world. Once you realize that difference, then you realize you're in charge of it. You can throw it out. Right? Time to be done with this one. And so we're here to make the tools for doing that, and the awareness of how that unfolds when you wake up. One of the chapters in the book is waking from the has-been. And the has-been is just the stuff in the mind that goes on and on and on, and seems to be, it's so seamlessly integrated into the pain that the mind produces that it must be coming from the outside. It must be part of the event out there. My mind would never do that to me. And once you wake up to that one and clean it up, it's monumental. So, Machine, we have everybody in the phone queue with a hand up, or anything happening in the chat room?
We do have a hand up, and it's 610.
Awesome. Let's say hi to the caller.
I believe it's Miss Susan. Hi, Jeanie, Michael.
Hey, good to hear your voice. We haven't heard from you in a few days.
Okay. Well, you're hearing now. I was just talking to Dr. Glad you're glad. I was just talking to Dr. Tim about an interview I just heard and read a lot of hype and enthusiastic comments about a man who's a biologist from Australia named Jeremy Griffiths. And he's about our age, you know, more or less ballpark. He is still alive.
40s, right?
Right. So I wondered if you'd heard of him.
No, I haven't. What's his interview about? What is it that he's saying?
Well, I got really excited because there's a tremendous amount of hype out about him. He claims that we humans are basically innocent, but we've forgotten that. We've gotten into all kinds of conflict between our instincts and our intellect, as he puts it. He's written a book called Freedom, The End of the Human Condition. And he explains that we are basically like, there's a little tribe of chimpanzees somewhere in Africa named bonobo, and they live a completely loving communal life together.
Right.
The ideal
just like
life.
Real humans are supposed to.
Real humans, exactly. And he says that's what we are. The interview goes on and on. Yeah, I know you agree. That's why I'm excited to tell you that I think you and he ought to meet, because you have the tools, because he tells us what the problem is. He's very articulate and eloquent about all the ways we've gotten into trouble. And he says, this is the hope of humanity, and everybody's all excited. And you listen to the whole thing, and as I was telling Dr. Tim, it's like listening to one of those infomercials where you're going to find out that thing that you're supposed to eat that will cure foot disease. And you wait for an hour, and finally you learn about a pill, you know, and it's very frustrating.
Something
and
they've got for sale.
The same thing. Yeah. He does the same thing, and I'm thinking, all right, I know how miserable we are. I know what a mess we're in. We're destroying ourselves, etc. Let's hear your solution. He doesn't have one, Michael. All he says is that this is who we are, and this is the cure. And he does admit at one point in one of the interviews that it's going to take several generations to get there. And I'm thinking, it doesn't have to. You've got to meet
Nope,
Michael.
sure doesn't.
I swear to God, you've got to get a hold of this guy. If you look him up, his name is Jeremy Griffiths, and he's about 77. And he's Australian, and there's so much hype up right now. And Dr. Tim told me he heard this lecture or interview a year ago, so it's been around. But I only heard about it, and I dove right in and thought, I've got to get his book. But the more I listened, and he has his own trigger things, you know, and you're good. You say everybody has a trigger, okay. So he could learn a lot from you, and his visibility might just bump you way up where you ought to be, and you are among groups of people. But this, I know I'm going a little nuts, but Wikipedia has a lot on him. Where else? He has his own website too. I can't find it right now. It doesn't matter. Whatever you look up will take you to that stuff.
It's cool to hear that somebody from the world of biology is finally uncovering that conclusion. And
yeah, and he says this is not religion, and this is not spiritual, and this is scientific. I said, who cares? We just need to get there. And
right. And I would shift the focus a little bit from getting over being human to getting back to being human, because what we're seeing expressing in this world is not human.
Yeah.
The hostility, this fear game that's going on.
Right. Well, he's doing
cool. Well, we'll look it up.
Yeah. If he saw some of your posts on Facebook, he would say, "Oh, I don't know, that guy sounds like a lefty." He's got a thing about lefties, and I think he's probably very superficial. And he's from Australia, so I don't know what left really means in that culture and country. But he gets hung up there, and Dr. Tim very wisely said, "Aha! Well, he needs to do the work. He's got the same things going on that the rest of us do who haven't really come around and done our work." But anyway, I just wanted to say you could throw in with him and make such a big explosion on the planet, because he has evidently a ton of visibility. And
well, Jeanie has already...
Yeah. Go ahead. Freedom. The title is the book is Freedom, the End of the Human Condition, published in 2016.
My title would be Liberty, the Beginning of the Human Condition.
Well, don't fight him too hard at the beginning, Michael.
Oh no, I'm right there. I'm right there with him. That's right on track.
Okay.
So thank you for that. We'll check it out. We'll check out his video, and who knows? Maybe create some conversation and some connectedness.
I tried on his website, which I don't have right now. I tried to find a way to contact him, because I was going to recommend your website to him and the Wake Up Sheet and Tools. And I said, you are all the way there, except everybody's going to ask, how do we do it? How do we do it? And why does it have to take 3 generations minimum? So, but I couldn't find a way to contact him. So good luck. I hope you do. Jeanie's such a wizard. She'll probably find a way.
She'll find a way.
I have found a website called thehumancondition.com.
That's it.
Yeah. So we'll see if there is a contact button. So
good.
Awesome.
Good, Jeanie. Great.
So did he give you any kind of tool or insight into how this process that he's talking about might happen?
Not to me, but I stopped, because you have to plow through those long infomercial type things. He is a genius in how he presents how we are right now, how we appear to be. But I couldn't find any suggestions. I looked through all the comments too, and mostly they were, "This is it. This will solve the problem." But I say, how? Nobody says how, and that's what I was going to write to him about. I'd rather be released from that responsibility, because you're the genius behind these tools, and the real McCoy ought to call him up. So,
if I'm looking on Amazon under the book, and the description of it, it says the fastest growing realization everywhere is that humanity can't go on the way it's going. Indeed, the great fear is that we're entering end game, where we appear to have lost the race between self-destruction and self-discovery, the race to find the psychologically relieving understanding of our good and evil afflicted human condition. Well, astonishing as it is, this book by biologist Jeremy Griffith presents the 11th hour breakthrough biological explanation of the human condition necessary for the psychological rehabilitation and transformation of our species.
Now, doesn't that sound like Michael Ryce?
Let's go for it. I'm willing.
Good.
I'm excited to hear about that somebody from the world of biology is coming to that conclusion, because to me it's a most obvious conclusion. And I wonder what it is for this gentleman that, there must be something connected for him, in him, to make that discovery, to bring that forward. So I'll be excited to find out what his journey has been from the non-human to the human self.
Yeah. Well, I hope you do connect, and I hope he's open to connecting. Yeah, that's really exciting.
Very cool. Other than that, is there anything extra exciting happening in your world?
Lots of breakthroughs, lots of good work going on. It started a couple of weeks ago with sort of the back-to-back worksheet stuff you and Tim Hayes did with me that's been totally liberating and sometimes exhausting if I face right into it and do another layer. Like yesterday, I was wiped out for most of the afternoon after doing some work with Dr. Tim, but I don't, it's just the old stuff, getting more old stuff surfacing and getting processed through, including the shame of bothering. I remember I had an uncle when I was much younger who talked in his older age. He was very depressed. He told me about how this didn't happen or did happen when he was small, and all I could think of was, oh my God, man, get off of it. Well, here I am doing the same thing. He was processing like mad, and I loved this guy, so I never spoke to him that way. But I did wonder, isn't it kind of embarrassing to be going through these early memories that are pretty common to other people? What's the big deal that I'm moaning and groaning over this thing? So I've had to deal with embarrassment about that, hearing my mother's voice saying, oh, for heaven's sake, you're focusing too much on yourself, that sort of thing. It's been rich and really good. And at the same time, I've got Jacob and Michael. I have to confess, I have your link to that 3-hour thing. I have listened to it myself. And the more I listened, I just thought, Jacob's brain isn't set up to listen to this. And I probably shouldn't even make that judgment. But I'm in Al-Anon, and they always say, don't send literature, don't make suggestions. You're telling them that they're wrong and they're this and they're that. And no matter if I make it a business deal, two levels. I don't think I have the right to do that, even though it's great stuff. And I don't think he is wired to listen to it. But I am sneaking the principles in when I talk to him just by using myself and some trouble I've been in to demonstrate or explain how I got out of something. And even that is really the Al-Anon people. I have a meeting this afternoon, and I'm a little nervous because I think they're going to say, whoa, you're off your lane again. You're in his lane. Get back in your own lane. So I haven't sent it to him. That's one thing.
Well, my offering would be that there is a level on which that workshop's meant to talk to the brain. But more importantly, it's meant to talk to the soul. And it's the soul that will hear it. It's the soul that will start to make sense of it. Over the years, it's always amazed me how when somebody makes a connection to it, what their own internal genius does with it. And what I get, from what I've watched of what this young man has created in the music world and such, the genius that he is, that he has. And that's the part that, to me, it speaks to and awakens or strengthens.
Well, that's very encouraging. It might just tip the scales, and I might dare to do it anyway. That's good. I can just say, this may not hit the mark, or it may. Do your best. I want to hear from you, and it's a business deal. Tim Bingham doesn't think it's a good idea. It's like a bribe, and I said, yes, it is. I believe in bribes every once in a while. So maybe that's just a wrong word. It's an incentive, let's put it that way. So that's a good thought. Excellent talk, Michael. It's like the
oftentimes
culmination of lot of work you did. It comes together really well, and I love that you're introduced like a big shot instead of getting out there all by yourself.
Well, oftentimes people hold back because, well, I can't influence them. Listen, the world is pounding into his brain every day. The world of electronics, his phone, his iPad, or his computer, they're pounding in on his brain day in, day out, day in, day out. The world of education is pounding into his brain all the time, trying to influence. If he's a TV watcher, those commercials are pounding into his brain at every moment. The messages that come in from music are pounding into his brain with all kinds of craziness. And do we have a right to bring sanity to someone who's being pounded on like that all the time? I don't envy young people today. If they don't have the foundation, if they don't have the parenting that, I mean, one of the games of the world as I see it is to make sure that parents are so unavailable that the children become available to the brainwashing. And so, handing a child that's being pushed from every direction, emotionally, psychologically, sexually, from every direction, handing them something that gives them truth to stand with and hold on to and something to do about it, to me is just, yes, as a parent, as a grandparent, you have every right, because somebody's going to get a hold of that brain, and a lot of what's trying to reach into his brain, and sometimes with the most expert technology, is just plain flat out destructive.
Okay, that's true.
So that would be my take as a concerned grandparent. You have every right to see if you can influence that young man.
Good, thanks. That's good. My daughter had a really interesting insight, because Jacob, you know how he acts toward us if we don't give him money. He gets mean. And she said she and her Al-Anon group, they pointed out the fact that in his family of origin, his father was not the breadwinner. He did get jobs. He did very well here and there, but he wanted to make sure that his wife carried the burden of the household and the raising of the kids. So that's their model that they had. And he was, in some ways, just expecting to be taken care of. This is the father. So my daughter said he's also living with that paradigm or model, and it just helps to understand. He once told me, maybe I told you this, I said, Jake, we've been supporting you already. What's the deal? And he said, but I have to pull it out of you. You're stingy. I thought, whoa, because we're not just throwing dollars at him. We're asking for him to meet us part way, not even halfway. But it's been ugly, because we've got this bipolar, unreliable brain going there too, which I've learned to not take personally and just wait it out, hold love, distance, wait till something cools off. Then there may be a mild little apology, or maybe nothing, but somehow we resume normal relating after a while. And I even think we're rewarding that kind of abuse because we don't call him on it, because it gets us into a terrible fight. It doesn't lead to anything but ugliness. So this is a tricky kid. So
when I listen to you talking about what this gentleman Jeremy is doing, it's what he's talking about, the bipolar. Where are you going to go? Are you going to be human? You're going to be non-human. You're going to live in hostility, fear, manipulation. You're going to live as a human being.
He calls it psychosis. I forgot to tell you. He says we are all in a mass psychosis. And whatever word you
I agree.
use, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Boy, are you going to hit it off with this guy?
Insanity. I mean, it's literally insanity when you think that love, the human being love is conned into rage and fear and grief and pain and trauma and victimhood. It's insane. Yes,
Yep.
Psychotic. Most of our world today is psychotic, literally.
Well, you certainly are on the same wavelength as Jeremy Griffith. So
my offering once again would be to give this young man a hand up into sanity by offering him access to some tools that most people, unfortunately at this point, I mean, we're doing our best to change that, but most people never meet, never even know exist.
Yeah, right.
And certainly have no support for moving toward.
I'm convinced.
You've got to practice.
You've convinced me, though. I've been a chicken. So this is good. Thanks.
One of the things that I appreciate in our home at this point, with the fact that Ari is here 2 to 3 days a week, and I think about it as a kid myself, and I get to interact a significant amount with Aria, but nothing like what Jeanie does. And what Jeanie has done as her grandmother is that 2 to 3 days a week, Aria comes to play with her playmate, and Jeanie is with her for 6, 7, 8, 9. If one of her parents are working late, sometimes 10 hours. And I mean, that's all they do all day is play. And their play is learning. Their play is focused on love and caring and correction when something other than that happens. And I just think about the benefit that this little girl has.
Oh, it's huge.
One of the games of the world is to keep parents so busy. I mean, we're at the point, unless somebody's in a profession that gives them a significant remuneration, if they're just Joe average, it takes two incomes to even keep a home going.
I know.
And now the child is vulnerable to the prey of drugs and alcohol and rage and guilt and pain and psychosis.
Right. That's true.
And it's so, to me, it's just, this has been coming to me more and more just this last few days, just watching that Aria so looks forward to coming and hanging out with her playmate all day.
That's so wonderful.
Papa kind of comes in and out of it, but they're full time, and it's really sad that our culture, which if we wanted to, every person in this country could spend the majority of their day in their home, in their lives, functioning as human beings, playing, being in their gardens, and live very well. There's enough commonwealth. They talk about the Commonwealth of Virginia, and that word really means something. It's been forgotten. The Commonwealth has been squandered on insanity, stolen from people and put into the pockets of controlling, manipulative, psychotic corporations and people, sadly. And it's time for it to be restored and for humans to have human interaction fully as children and to grow into that likeness of a human being rather than a human doing.
Yep.
So thank you, Nini.
Oh, yeah, and Jeanie, I have to hand it to you. I've done a lot of grandmothering myself, and you can get really pooped. I hope you have a ton of energy.
I do, and usually when I take her home, then I come back and do an hour of Avicen before I start dinner or anything, and a lot of times, most of the time, Michael already has dinner going, so that helps tremendously. But yeah, we play, whether it's pretend this or pretend that or, whatever.
Yeah. Synchronicity, because Dr. Tim was talking about playing in the previous hour, if you wanted to listen to it, just how Christian Sundberg in his book, A Walk in the Physical, has an essay on having fun, and you're doing it.
It's what we're designed for. So we'll have a conversation with Jeremy about that, how to get us back there.
Absolutely. He needs that. He doesn't have the tool. I think that's why there's so much yakking going on in his interviews, because he doesn't really know how people are going to get there. He just says, we will because we know we're really innocent. But he doesn't have your tools.
Well, thank you for informing us, and thank you for the care and concern that you have for those young men in your life, your son, your grandsons, and the gift of the work you do to benefit them is awesome.
Thanks. I hope it does. With my younger grandboy, Jonathan's boy, he's got what they describe as relationship OCD, which means he'll fixate on someone, and then no matter what they say or do, he will question everything and feel terribly anxious because it wasn't exactly right, and it leaves him feeling unable to enjoy his life, is how he puts it. He told me yesterday, Orb, I haven't been able to enjoy my life for about 4 years. And he went for blood tests to find out why he has trouble making himself eat. He's very slim, he's muscular, he works out, he looks great. But he doesn't want to eat. And one of the blood work things that came back was his cortisol level was sky high. He said, I'm living like this. This is not healthy. And, so I use the tools digested by Orb. I just, I tell him about, well, you've got that goal, and there's a lot of stress in that goal not being met. He did 1 or 2 early worksheets with Jeanie's app, and for some reason he got turned off, and it wasn't the app. It's just because it's a relative trying to tell him something. In any case, I'm easing the material in pre-digested, and he does hear it. And I'm using everything, Prativan, blessing, and prayer, and telling him, Tim Hayes uses the phrase, allow, breathe, and soften. And I'll say that to him, breathe and soften. He's like, oh, okay, I'm breathing and I'm softening. And then I say, when you think of your dad and you think something's wrong, you know in your heart of hearts that your dad adores you, always has. You're precious to him. Nothing could change that. Anything he might say is going through a bad filter in your head, and you're making it something bad, and it isn't. I want you to breathe and say, I love you, Dad, and I bless you. You do it in your mind. And I love you, Charlie. And I love myself, Charlie, and I bless myself. And he says, I'm trying to do all those things, but I still feel it. And I said, just do them.
Well, remember that.
Tools. Yeah, go ahead.
Some authority, somebody in a white coat, has diagnosed him.
Yeah.
So he's got the mind energy of this disorder that he's got. Perhaps helping him to convert this diagnosis, and remember the word dyad means two, and agnostic is somebody who doesn't know. Diagnostic is two who don't know.
I know.
Perhaps giving him the right, but perhaps give him the mind energy of, give him the gift of recognizing that it's up to him, and all he has to do is convert this into a compulsive blessing rather than disorder. That this is his blessing, that he gets to look at the things that he focuses on and that he ruminates on, and that this is where he can strengthen his ability to change his own mind and step into creating such a delightful, joyful life that it'll be awesome for him. And when you give him a different prognosis to the point where he trusts and buys that prognosis, guess what? As a creator, he's going to create. Right now, sounds like he's trapped in that obsessive compulsive disorder. He's got the diagnosis and he's bought it and he's playing it out.
Yeah.
So give him a better one. Obsessive compulsive blessing. Everything you do turns to a blessing, son. And when he gets that shift in mind energy, guess what'll happen? He'll create everything as a blessing.
Michael, I understand what you're saying, but I can't imagine presenting that quite that way to him. Can you melt it down or say it a different way?
Well, probably, maybe explaining the meaning of the word diagnosis.
Yeah.
Explaining that he, as you, and we all are creators. We're creators. We've been robbed of that understanding. And we've been given a program by which we create, and we're unconscious of the fact that it's we who are creating it, that program's been slipped to us. And that acknowledging him as a creator, and you've had lots of authorities that tell you your life's going to be miserable because you've got this disorder, and look at this, you're creating it. Good job, son. Now, what if you understood that the root of it is what you're creating and the mind energy you choose to engage in, and you start to shift that? Let's sit down and do a mind shifter together. Let's look at some of those things, and let's start to work through them and create a life that is blessed with creativity. It sounds like he's a physically strong and attractive young man that brings his attractiveness to awareness and his strength to awareness and his capacity as a creator.
Michael, can you craft a mind shifter for him?
Sure. Every thought that comes to me blesses me with the opportunity to upgrade from disorder to blessing. Every thought that comes to me blesses me with the opportunity to upgrade from disorder to blessing. And once he gets that he's a creator and he can do what he wants with it, watch him take off.
I'm going to use that one too, Michael.
Go for it. I might too. As a matter of fact, can write it down if you text it to me. I'd appreciate it.
I will. Okay. It's great. Thank you.
Sweet. And we hold the space for it. And your work, your genius, just unleash it with him.
I do tell him, I said, I had massive anxiety from puberty until about 6 years ago when I started doing these wake-up sheets. And I get mad and I get upset and I obsess about things, but there's no comparison. The anxiety has physically walked out of my system. I don't have it at all, ever. Not in the early morning when I used to get it the worst, not during the day. It's beyond relapsability even. I feel solid in this. Boy, I better knock on wood. There you go.
And what did you do to do that? You changed your mind.
Yeah, with some help from my friends. Okay.
Well, of course, that's what we're all here for. But the simple fact is, all you did was change your mind. Nothing else in your life is any different. You just changed your thinking about it. And when you can get the realization that that's all I've done. Gee, I get up in the morning and I don't think, oh, what terrible thing is going to happen today. I think, oh, I wonder what kind of blessing I'm going to be or what kind of blessing I'm going to get today. That's the difference between anxiety and a joyful life. That's all it is. That's the only difference between an angst kind of day and a sweet day of wonderment. You listen to Paul 2,000 years ago. There were several pieces he didn't have, but he had this one. What did he say? Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. You know, you go to the opening words in the book of John, and it doesn't say in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh. It says in the beginning was the mind energy, and the mind energy became flesh. This is our creative power. When we think a thought, it becomes the chemistry in our body that at a hospital they measure and say, oh, you've got the ABC chemical, therefore you've got the ABC disease. No, I've got the ABC thought, and I can change it. And when I do, my chemistry changes. My cells change. Everything changes.
And Paul says, whatever is good, whatever is true, whatever is beautiful, think on these things. I don't know the whole thing, but I often think about that, which is more of what you just said.
Yeah. And when somebody's in the OCD, in trauma, all that they're doing is the amplitude, the intensity of the mind energy of trauma and pain is what keeps them ruminating on that. When forgiveness is applied, literally those frequencies, those energy patterns lose their amplitude. They weaken until they're just one more option in the mind. And if you continue to work to forgive them, then they're not even an option in the mind. They disappear. They fall away. Because who would go there when they know what they're doing to themselves?
That's great. And you know, he is so smart. He will get this. Whether he applies it, and there is some clinker in there at this point, resisting, but who doesn't know that?
It's just a thought.
Yeah.
It's just a thought. It's just a thought to be overcome, a thought to be forgiven. A thought to be weakened in its amplitude until it's just one more voice in the head, and I have option for other voices and other creative possibilities. And with the skills that you've shared with that he has, his hands, woodworking and such, sounds like a genius, much like Jacob. And we can just get that mind energy moving in the direction of conscious creation and human life. Maybe get him to listen to Jeremy. You know, Jeremy having that biological approach might just, sit and watch that with him. And, here's a biologist that's telling us what we can do, and here's a 3-hour workshop on how to do it.
Well, that's the trouble. There is no workshop on how to do it. That's where Michael Ryce comes in.
Well, that's what I just said. There's a 3-hour workshop. Here's how to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I see. I thought you were meaning that Jeremy had the workshop. That's what he doesn't have.
No. Right. Well, we do.
I know.
The goal is just, the whole thing is just getting it into people's hands and having them hang around long enough. I get really clear. I've gotten really clear that past the gate of their own compulsive rotary thinking on old family and cultural dynamics that people get stuck in. They have to get out of the gravity of those things and into the gravity of, oh, I'm a human being. I am love. I'm a creator. Oh, so I can create this differently rather than running the family pattern? Yes. So we'll hold the space for that conversation.
Thanks. Yeah, he's
and
around.
The thought comes that the thought comes that you might at some point introduce Luke into the conversation. Luke was there. You stuck with him, and you stuck with him, and you stuck with him, and it doesn't sound like this young man has the addictive challenge the same, but same issue, same game. And so perhaps at some point bring Luke into the game to advise him as a peer. You know, I've realized I've got a routine I need to do each day in order to keep me on track, and here's how you do it.
That's great. That's a good idea.
So we'd be holding the space for all three of those young men.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, any other thoughts for you?
No, I ran out.
Well, thanks for introducing Jeremy to us. We'll take a look. We'll watch his stuff and see what kind of opening we can create.
That's exciting.
You know, there was a time, I don't know whether I ever shared this with you before or not, but back when I wrote Why Is This Happening to Me Again, Jim Redfield, who wrote Celestine Prophecy, was the second best-selling book in the world in 1995, was a student of mine while he was writing that, and he took my book to his editor at Warner Books, the largest publisher in the world, and Warner Books approached me and wanted to publish the book. This, you know, your time has come. And I was guided to refuse that invitation. I turned them down. And I did that based on guidance, though my ego was certainly excited about, wow, this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for. And then it was like, no, Michael, don't do it, because it'll be killed.
Why? What was your guidance about? Do you know why?
Basically, it was if this understanding gets out at this point starts to move out into the public eye, that there'll be powers who are going to want to shut it down. And I was given a visual of that. I was given a visual of it just being squashed, being destroyed. And then I was shown literally a visual of the blue planet in space. And at that point, it was like the first visual I got was the blue planet, was the Earth, and there was like a spike. By going with Warner Books, there was a spike created, and once that spike came to public awareness, that it would be destroyed. And then the second visual that I was given was that there was a thin layer around the planet, which now, you know, we've got the book in I don't even know how many different countries, the forgiveness process. It's global. It's not central with me anymore. It's globally available. And that was the visual that I was given, and then I was told that I'll know when it's time, and then that thin layer would grow to the level of the spike all around the planet, and there would be nothing anybody could do about it because it wasn't centralized in one place or one person.
You know,
and it's interesting.
Story.
Well, it's interesting. In fact, I just talked to the owner of Avison yesterday. She used to be in the jewelry business. And if you remember, the Avison logo is a globe. That was the visual I got. Well, if you look at any of that, I'll send you a copy of the Avison logo, and it was like, that's it. And she has it in a piece of jewelry. I talked to her about it yesterday. She's sending to me. I shared that story with her yesterday.
That is so weird, Michael.
And that's it.
That is so weird.
So it's like...
Well, another thing Dr. Tim was talking about is synchronicity, and Audrey came on and says, wow, you're talking about exactly what I'm thinking about, and I needed to hear that, and it's so good. It is, it happens. That's great.
And synchronicity, if you read Celestine Prophecy with Jim Redfield, synchronicity was the focal point of Jim's book.
I didn't remember that. I did read it a gazillion years ago, and I don't remember it at all.
Yeah.
Gosh, you know, Michael, that was a huge temptation for you to pass up.
It was bigger than you could imagine. It was bigger than I could imagine. That was I mean, Jim was basically rolling in money at that point. I said, Michael, here it is. They want your book.
Oh.
And I just got such clear, don't go there, Michael. I mean, it was...
Did you tell him that?
Did I tell Jim that?
No, Mike Bachman, or the author of the Celestine Prophecy. Is that his name?
Yeah, Jim Redfield. Yeah, Jim Redfield.
Did you tell him?
No, I never shared that with Jim.
Is he still alive?
At that point, he's around. Jim used to study with me. He lived in Birmingham, and when he was writing that, I actually, the first case of books that came out of Celestine Prophecy, he was in Birmingham. I was speaking in Pensacola, Florida. He got in his car and brought cases of the book down, and that was the first place he sold them, was at my workshop at Pensacola. And we put it out in our newsletter, and when we put the book, we have people all over the country. We put Celestine Prophecy out in our newsletter. All of a sudden, it started to sell all over the country, and that's what got Warner Books interested in Jim and got him the deal with Warner Books. It was the work we did with his book. But by that time, he made that introduction for me, and that was great. And it was kind of like he was past the point. He was bigger than that at that point.
He was in orbit.
Yeah, in orb. Yeah.
In orb.
So.
Oh my God, I just think that's an amazing story, and an amazing story of trusting your gut, your messages. What an amazing thing, and to see what the trajectory of our global misery is. Your global ministry is in there, but I mean, to see how bad things, you didn't have any idea probably back then, but to see how long you had to wait and how desperate everybody had to become before it could get out there.
Well, it's time.
To get out there. Yeah. Okay, well, that's an amazing story. I had heard it before, but it hadn't gone in to my gray matter the way it did this time. The restraint, the passing up of your innate non-human greed could have taken over, and it didn't.
Yeah, I was already kind of at the point where, basically back then I was traveling anywhere on the globe we were invited. I was paying my own expenses. The workshops were free. We were past that place. Knew what we were here to do.
That's amazing.
Been working on it for many, many, many lifetimes.
Really? Is that how you see it
Yep.
now? Did you always see it that way? Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something I've been aware of for a long time.
You're kind enough to call some of us early adopters, but we sound rather late, I must say.
Well, of course, it's all relative. It depends how late your relatives were at it. Anyway, it's an idea as time has come, and we'll definitely be in touch with Jeremy and see what unfolds in that conversation.
Great.
Sweet. So anything else on your mind, young lady?
No, Michael, that's shot my brain. That's it. Thanks so much for those Good pieces of advice. I'm going to send the thing to Jacob and present the mind shifter to Charlie.
Cool. Well, we'll be extending love in your direction to really know that Ruka in you will give you the words to say. You know, when you hear Yeshua talk about, don't be concerned for the words will be put into your mouth when you go before the judge. And, you know, that's been interpreted as some sort of a legalistic thing when you go in front of God and God's going to send you to hell or whatever, you know, that whole insanity.
Yeah.
But the Aramaic sense of that is really about in the moment of creation, when it's about to come into expression, you're going to be guided. You know, the judge is basically, it's going to come to fruition. It's going to come into expression in the world. And in that moment, if you are open to the mind, the real mind in you, which they call the mind of Christ, if you're open to that, it's going to tell you exactly what to say and exactly what to do. All you have to do is be listening rather than stuck in your mind.
That is so true. And when I do speak to the boys, I do pray a lot. I say, put the words in, tell me what to say. I don't know what to say to these fellas. So that's true. And Jonathan does that over his hands when he's about to operate. I've told you that, I think. He looks at his hands. These are your hands. Please do what needs to be done for this person.
That's it. How awesome is that?
How awesome is that? It's true. He's a good boy.
And I just sent you a text. It won't be there yet. It's just leaving my phone now. And there's basically the visual that I was shown.
Oh, my gosh. And how similar. It just sounds so similar to what you described. Whoa.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Me too. It's time. It's time. We're right on the cusp of taking it all to the next level.
That's so great.
Well, Miss Jeanie, any thoughts for you, for Susan, in this conversation?
No, it's been awesome.
Oh, Jeanie, I had a teeny feedback. It may have been fixed. I went online to find Richard's responsibility communication letter, and there was a sample letter there, or guidelines. That's what it was, guidelines on how to write the letter. And it
right,
said
and it's not Richard. It's the example letters weren't Richard. Oh, I think
David.
one of them was Joy. David.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, whatever it was, I was going to use it in my writing of a letter to my friend over whom I was fussing 2 weeks ago, and you took me right out of that. That was nice. One thing you find out is you get triggered terribly sometimes, but it doesn't last that long.
Right.
Process right through it. May it continue.
So did you get the letter, or I can send it to you if you didn't get the rules in the letters?
I did get the letter. I used that as a template. I did get the letter, and that was good. Yeah, not to worry. Okay. I meant to tell you that page was non-functional, but then I forgot. So.
Okay.
So, hello there, kitty cat. I want to read once more, and we've done this many times, but those 2 paragraphs from the Course that are so important. It would indeed, and this is for you as a teacher, it would indeed be strange if you were asked to go beyond all the symbols of the world a while, that is beyond words, forgetting them forever, but were asked to take a teaching function. You have need to use the symbols of the world a while, but be you not deceived by them as well. They do not stand for anything at all. And in your practicing, it is this thought that will release you from them. They, the words, become but means by which you can communicate in ways the world can understand, the non-human world, but which you recognize as not the unity where true communication can be found. Thus, what you need each day are intervals in which the learning of the world, the constructs of your mind's perception, words, become a transitory phase a prison house from which you go out into the sunlight and forget the darkness. Here, you understand the Word, the name the Creator has given you, the one identity which all things share, the one acknowledgement of what is true, and then step back to darkness, not because you think it real, but only to proclaim its unreality in terms which still have meaning in the world that darkness rules.
Gorgeous. Tell me where that is.
That's all you need to do with those boys. Give them the words that help them to recognize that what they've been told is meaningless.
Yeah.
It has no power over them.
That was perfect reading. Thanks.
And liberate them from that darkness. That's in the lesson, let's see. I'll have to find, I don't know, I just have them in a file here, but I don't have where they're from.
Oh, not to worry. Don't worry. They were just absolutely brilliant. Perfect. Thanks.
That's been the two most important paragraphs in the course for me from the earliest days of working with it 4 decades ago. I would read those two paragraphs, and every time I did, I'd instantly go into an altered state, just reading those paragraphs.
They're totally
and then one day after some time period, I don't know how long it was, whether it was 2 months or 2 years, I don't know. But every time I read it, I'd go into this altered state, and then one day I read it, and it was just words on the page again. It was done in me.
Wow. And you totally got it. Great. The Blog Talk Radio has let you go overtime by a whole minute, Michael.
Well, it seems that they kind of, if we stop talking for just a few seconds, it'll quit. But usually it'll give us some grace. So.
Oh, that's nice. It's a human
thing. It is nice. It is nice. So everybody, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you and hold the blessing of the best year yet of your eternal life, recognizing that that is an awesome gift to give the world, and you have the power to give it. So pass it on.